Welcome to my channel, Business Basics Simplified. This channel is dedicated to treating basic business concepts in a way that even a 7-year-old child will be able to understand the concepts. In this episode, we'll be talking about cost accumulation, which is a managerial accounting concept. We are going to break it down to the point where you cannot misunderstand it. If you want to have the opportunity of seeing other topics that we have treated, please subscribe to this channel and you will become a business guru in no time as you constantly consume our basic business concepts. As I said, today we'll be treating cost accumulation. We'll be finding out what is cost accumulation, what are the benefits of accumulating cost, and what do you use it for. Apart from that, there are various approaches to cost accumulation which we'll be looking at. And then we will look at the entire process of accumulating cost. So let's dig in. What is cost accumulation? Cost accumulation is a process of collecting and recording costs related to a product, a project, or service, and then trying to allocate or assign those costs and eventually analyzing those costs for decision making. So you realize that cost allocation involves four main things. First, collect, then record, allocate the cost, and analyze the cost for decision making. What are the benefits derived from the exercise of cost accumulation? At least there are four main benefits. The first of them is pricing. In order to be able to determine the right selling price for a product, it's important for you to know all the costs that are involved in producing that product. So this is one of the key reasons why you need to accumulate costs. The other benefit is for you to be able to do your profitability analysis. We'll be using the example of a publishing business. If you were running a publishing business, you would like to know how you are making profit. Let's say you're publishing books, which of the books that you're publishing are generating the most profit? And are you actually making a profit or you're making a loss? So that is profitability analysis, and is one of the main reasons why you want to do cost accumulation. The next benefit of doing cost accumulation is budgeting and forecasting. As you collect costs and analyze costs, it helps you to be able to plan for your next project or the next period of your operations. And that helps you with things like cash flow and cash management. The last of the benefits that we'll talk about here is cost control. If you do effective cost accumulation and analysis, you'll be able to know how to optimize your cost on various products or projects or even services, whether to increase the price or reduce prices, or how do you reduce costs on a product. All these things will be possible if you do proper cost accumulation. Now, there are sources of cost that we need to look at. We get information on cost from source documents, because these are the documents based on which costs are recorded into the books of accounting. We call them source documents. And these include payroll documents, receipts, invoices, bills, and all of that. So these are the places you go to identify your cost information. And once you've been able to gather these documents, you can begin to record your cost information. As we record cost information from the source documents, the next thing we need to do is to group the information we have for them to become useful. Now, there are three main groupings of cost. The first one we'll talk about is direct labor cost. And this refers to the wages that we pay to people who work directly on the product. So let's go back to using publishing business as an example or case study. If you are running a publishing business, your direct wages or direct labor cost will be the workers who work directly on the product. For instance, one of the main aspects of publishing is writing. So we have a writer or a group of writers. Because they work directly on the product, the wages that they are paid are considered as direct labor. We have artists who do the sketch work. We have designers who do the templates and the typesetting. All these people are considered as people who work directly on the product. And so their wages are considered direct labor costs. Now, the other cost we need to consider is direct materials. And these are the raw materials that we put into production. In the example that we have chosen, that is publishing, one of our key direct materials is what? Paper. That is, if we are producing paper books, not digital books. If we are actually producing paper books, our raw material is the paper. And if you know a little bit about publishing, you know that there are so many different types of paper depending on the kind of publishing you're trying to do, the kind of book or whatever product you're trying to come out with. Then the third category is manufacturing overheads. Not all costs can be traced directly to the product, and so these costs are considered as overhead costs, and they are usually indirect because you can't trace them directly to the product. For instance, utilities, office rental, maintenance, cleaning, depreciation on assets, marketing, promotions, all these are considered as overheads and they are indirect costs, so you group them as well. Now let's look at methods of cost accumulation. There are three main methods for accumulating costs. The first we want to talk about is job order costing. And this is the process of accumulating costs based on individual jobs or orders. And this is especially useful when every job is different from the previous one. So still using the example of a publishing business, every book you publish may be different, because as a publisher, you may publish a book for Daniel Steele, and then you publish a book for Ruben, or you publish a book for John Cena. Each of these books are going to be different, so you cannot use the same costing for all of them. So when gathering cost in this scenario, you gather the cost based on the jobs or the individual orders. One example I also like to use when I'm talking about job order costing is for a furniture manufacturer or a catering service. Every event is different. So when gathering costs, you gather for cost based on the events you've hosted as a catering service. You will not have the same cost for every event, because every event is different. Now the next one I'd like to talk about is process costing. Now, just like the name, process costing, you are trying to gather cost by processes or departments or divisions. If we go back to our original example of the publishing business, the publishing business involves several processes. So when you want to decide to produce a book, you start from, let's say, writing the book. So you get a writer or a group of writers to start writing, and then you get a designer who is going to design the templates or do the typesetting. If there are illustrations in the book, you're going to get an illustrator, and then it goes all the way to printing. And sometimes some books you have to do even translation into other languages. Before the book gets to the market, it will have gone through several processes, including maybe binding, printing and binding eventually, and then selling to the market. So you can gather cost based on the individual processes involved in producing the book. That is what is meant by process costing. Every process, you take the writing process, what did it cost? $20. Okay. The design process, what did it cost? $30. Okay. So as you accumulate that cost, all these costs, you will be able to get the full cost of producing the book. Then activity-based costing. Activity-based costing is about accumulating cost based on the volume of activities. And these are usually used for, or activity-based costing is usually very effective when you're trying to determine the overhead costs, because it's based on the level of activity. Even though it's also effective, even when you are gathering cost on direct materials or direct labor. Of course, if you are producing 10,000 manuals of any book or 50,000, it's only logical to understand that because you're producing more, your labor cost, direct labor cost, is likely to go up, or your direct materials is likely to go up. So, and even your overheads may go up. Let's take an overhead like marketing. If you're producing just a handful of books, you might need a marketing team of 2. But if you are producing hundreds of thousands of books, you are going to need a whole lot, a large marketing team to drive the sales. So that is activity-based costing. You are gathering cost based on the volume of activities or the level of activities. The next thing we need to look at is stages in cost accumulation. The first stage in the process is recording costs, which I think I mentioned briefly in the preceding slides, that cost accumulation involves gathering costs, collecting costs. So you get your source document, you get all those source documents with the information, then you record them. So after you record all the information from the source document, the next thing you do is to group them. You group them into the three categories as mentioned earlier. We have the direct materials, we have the direct labor, and then we have the manufacturing overhead costs. So that's how you group the various costs that you have recorded. And lastly, you assign the cost to cost objects, which could be a product, it could be a project, or even a service. So for instance, let's go back to our publishing example. We have gotten all the invoices and then the payroll documents, and based on the information that we find in these source documents, we are able to group them and say these are direct labor costs, these are direct material costs, these are manufacturing overheads. Okay, now we need to assign the cost to cost objects, which means that in simple terms, let's say we produced 5 books. So all the direct labor cost information that we have, which of them are related to book number 1? Which of them are related to book number 2? Which of them related to book number 3? So we are now going to assign the various costs to the cost objects. And that will help you know. So for instance, if, as I said, if we're using an example, we have published 5 books, and we will be able to assign the cost, all the direct labor cost for book number 1 added up to $50. All the direct labor cost, direct material cost for book number 2, sorry, the same book number 1 added up to $40. And there were manufacturing overheads for book number 1 ended up being $20. So when we add that up, we are going to get, I think, $110. So that is the cost of producing book number 1. Then we take book number 2. What are the costs that relate to book number 2? We take them from the direct labor cost, direct material cost, to to manufacturing overhead costs, and assign all those costs to book number 2, number 3, number 4, number 5, in that order. So no cost will fall through the cracks. At the end of the day, when we add a cost that we have assigned to the various cost objects, they should match up with the 3 cost groupings that we put together. So these are the simple stages involved in cost accumulation. So this brings us to the end of our discussion for today, which is cost accumulation. And to give you a quick summary, we learned the benefits of cost accumulation. We learned that cost accumulation is simply gathering cost information, assigning those costs to cost objects, categorizing the costs into groups, which are mainly direct labor, direct material, and manufacturing overheads. And then we also talked about the processes of assigning cost, which could be based on job costing, especially when each individual job is different and unique. And then we also talked about process costing, where costs are assigned based on processes. And then lastly is the activity-based costing, where cost is being assigned based on level of activity. And I said it is usually used for overhead costing, but equally useful in direct labor or direct material costing. And for more clarity, when we talk about overhead cost, we are talking about indirect cost. So because these are not easy to determine, they are not easily traceable to the final product or output, it's easier to use activity levels. So if we produced 10 books and 4 of them were for book number 1, 3 of the books were for book number 2, and the other 3 were for book number 3, we cannot say that the rent should be divided equally. Rent, which is an overhead cost, office rent cannot be shared equally amongst the 3 books. So we will use the activity level, the number of books we produced. So based on the number of books we produced, a slightly bigger chunk of the rent cost will be assigned to book number 1, which had 4 copies, and then book number 2 and book number 3, which are 3 copies apiece, will have equal amount of rent cost. So this is just to give you an idea of how the ABC costing can be used. Thank you very much for staying with us. Our next topic to be treated is cost measuring methods. It is one topic that can be confusing for students of managerial accounting. So if you want to get clarity on the difference between cost measuring methods and cost accumulation, make sure you subscribe to my channel and keep watching. See you next time. Bye-bye.